Let's continue on with Kapitel 23. So we have wo compounds and hier compounds, which are continuations of the da compounds. They work in a very similar way. So we have our da compounds, which we will review from the end of the last unit, and then we'll get into the wo compounds, which go along with them. So let's look at these sentences. Ich danke ihm für das Geschenk, which is, I thank him for the present. For the present, prepositional phrase with a noun as the object of the preposition. But then, ich danke ihm dafür, I thank him for it, dafür meaning for it. So instead of going into the pronoun for the object of the preposition, we're just going to use this new feature, which is the da compound, dafür. I thank him for it. Wir fangen mit unserer Arbeit an, which is we're starting with our work. And so mit unserer Arbeit, with our work, and then we're going to replace, instead of saying mit ihr, which would be with plus a feminine pronoun, we're going to say damit instead. Wir fangen damit an, we are starting with it. Hans ärgert sich über das Wetter, which is Hans is annoyed about the weather. And then Hans ärgert sich darüber. Hans is annoyed about it. So über das Wetter turns into darüber, about it. Du bereitest dich auf die Prüfung vor, which is you are preparing for the test. You're preparing yourself for the test. You could put the reflexive. And then, so auf die Prüfung is for the test. And so that transforms into darauf, if we want it to be a pronoun instead. For it, darauf in this case. Diana erinnert sich an meinen Geburtstag. So Diana remembers my birthday. And so since we have an, erinnert sich an, that's like the whole phrase. Sich erinnern an. So an is the preposition we're going to want to use. An meinen Geburtstag. So in the English there is no, just because the way the word remembers works, there's no preposition involved in the translation. Diana remembers my birthday. So also in the translation, there's not going to be, we're not going to have it just look, in English it's a direct object instead of a prepositional phrase. So you just say Diana remembers it, Diana remembers it, even though technically there's a preposition in there, but you can't really translate it. Lars hat Angst vor Feuer. Lars is afraid of fire. Angst vor something, vor Feuer, of fire, right? So all you have to do is, instead of saying vor plus a pronoun, you say davor. Lars is afraid of it. Davor, of it. Okay, so now let's try some of these. Ich denke an Karl. Ich denke an ihn. So I'm thinking of Karl. I'm thinking of him. So Karl is a person. So we're actually going to use the preposition plus the pronoun, as you would expect, and then pronoun in the right case for the situation, which is going to be accusative. Wir fragen nach dem Preis. We're asking for the price, we ask for the price, and then wir fragen danach, we're asking for it. So because Preis, meaning price, is like an object or an idea or a concept, it's not a person, so we're going to use the da compound instead of using a pronoun with the preposition. Sandra hat sich von ihrem Freund getrennt, which is Sandra broke up with her boyfriend. And then you want to say she broke up with him. And so because this is a person, we're going to actually say von ihm. She broke up with him. She separated herself from him, right? So von ihm is going to be with him as a person. Rainer versteht nichts von Computern. Rainer versteht nichts davon. Rainer doesn't understand anything about computers. Of computers. Or Rainer doesn't understand anything about them. So you could say about them as in the computers, right? Or about it as like the knowledge or something, right? So davon is about it. And versteht von is kind of a hard one to translate. You can also say he doesn't know anything about computers. Maybe sounds a little better. You don't get the word understand in there, but I think it actually conveys the same meaning and sounds nicer. So he doesn't know anything about computers, and then he doesn't know anything about them, you could say. Davon. Ich habe mich für Vanderbilt entschieden, so which is, of course, I decided on Vanderbilt. Ich habe mich dafür entschieden. I decided on it. Dafür. Because it is not a person, it is an object or idea, institution. So dafür, on it. Wir sprechen über unsere Oma. So this is a person. We're talking about our grandma. And then you would say we're talking about her. Über takes the accusative here. So whenever über means about as a preposition, it takes the accusative. So wir sprechen über sie. We're talking about her. So we're not going to use a da compound because that's only for objects and concepts. But for people, we want to use our normal preposition with a normal pronoun. And then freut sich auf seine Reise. It's of course, he's looking forward to his trip. And then auf, that's how we're going to make our da compound. Freut sich darauf. He's looking forward to it. Okay, now we have some dialogues containing some da compounds as well. Kurt says, warst du bei Sabines Geburtstagsfeier? Were you at Sabines birthday party? And then Ute says, nein, dieses Jahr war ich nicht dabei. No, I was not there present at it. The reason that dabei means present in this case is because you can say at the party, bei der Feier is like at, were you at the party? And it's like, no, I wasn't at it. So you could say I wasn't there. I wasn't present. Sabina says, was soll ich aus den Äpfeln machen? What should I make out of the apples? Aus den Äpfeln. What should I make out of the apples? And then we want to say out of them, right? Make something out of them. So Christian says, mach doch einen guten Nachtisch daraus. Why don't you make a good dessert out of them? So out of them, daraus. So since, Äpfel is actually plural here, but in the context when it's been replaced with a da compound, then it's still plural, right? And so in English we would convey that with the them, but in German it doesn't matter whether this was singular or plural, it's still just daraus. There's not a separate form for it. And then Birgit says, was habt ihr nach dem Abendessen gemacht? What did y'all do after dinner? So we're going to say nach dem Abendessen. That's our prepositional phrase we're looking at. In the next sentence, Alex says, wir sind gleich danach nach Hause gegangen, which is, we went home right afterwards, and it really means after it, right? Nach dem Abendessen, after dinner, and so it's like, we went home after it immediately. We went right home after it, but after it doesn't sound great. You could say afterwards, yeah. And then Ursula says, hat Anna ein neues Fahrrad? Does Anna have a new bike? Holger says, ja, sie fährt jetzt jeden Tag damit zur Uni. Yes, she is riding to the university. She's riding it to the university every day now. The thing is, this one's a little tricky because you have to know that when you ride a bike or when you take any form of transportation, ich fahre mit dem Fahrrad, ich fahre mit der U-Bahn, ich fahre mit dem Bus, ich fahre mit der Straßenbahn. Any of these things, I ride with the train, I ride with the bike. So the thing is, since it's like mit dem Fahrrad, then you want to replace it with damit, because that's the preposition. So that's pretty tricky, but she rides with it, as in she rides on it every day to the university. And then Helga says, kannst du mir helfen? Ich muss für meine Chemieprüfung lernen. Can you help me? I have to study for my chemistry test. And then the person, and Gertje answers, Chemie, ich weiß leider selber nicht viel davon. So davon is going to be about it, right? Chemistry. Unfortunately, I don't know much about it myself. I know, unfortunately, myself, not a lot of it. I don't know much about it. Davon, meaning about it or of it. Yeah. Okay, so now we will build on this to do some wohl compounds and also hier compounds. They work very similarly. So wohl compounds are parallel constructions to da compounds, but they're used to form questions instead. So let's look at a da compound would be dafür, for it, right? Or maybe for them. And then wofür would be for what. So if you ask a question with wofür, then the answer will have für in it somewhere, or maybe dafür. So you could say for what or what for. And then davon means of it, and then the wohl equivalent would be wovon, of what or what of, right? And then damit is with it, but then womit Womit is then, they're all emphasized on the second syllable, but to contrast them, I say womit and damit, but it's really womit and damit. Yeah. We have mit as with what, or what with, depending. And then darüber, about it, right? Worüber, about what. So instead of it, we have what in each of these because it's a question word. Darin, in it, and then worin, in what, or what in. So let's look at some questions that use the wo compounds. Wofür hat sich entschieden? What did he decide on? Because it's like sich entscheiden für is the preposition that goes with to decide, right? To decide for something. So what did he decide on is, in English we might have them separated like this. You could say what on did he decide, except for that's not, what on did he decide is like, sounds pretty bad in English. So just do it the more natural way, but you can see how wofür contains both like what and on. It's both of those. But of course, für is only, it's only für because that's what entscheiden uses, right? Yeah, so the equivalent of that is on in English. Worauf freust du dich? Which is, what are you looking forward to? So sich freuen auf is to look forward to. So auf, look forward to. Auf is like to in this case. So the wo is like what, and then the auf is the to. And of course, the same rule goes for the da. If the preposition begins with a vowel, then we're going to use the r. So worauf, the r just appears to separate those. So it's like, what are you looking forward to? It's like, to what are you looking forward? But of course, just to show you that worauf is both to and what. But the natural English translation would be, what are you looking forward to? And then, woran erinnern Sie sich would be, what do you remember? And it's, because of the way the word remember works, erinnern Sie sich, you could say, of what do you remind yourself? It's like, remembering is actually reminding yourself in German. So it's, of what do you remind yourself? Woran, of what do you remind yourself? Yeah. And then, wovon handelt das Buch? So this is like, of what, right? What is the book about, or of what does the book? Handeln really means to act. So, of what does the book act? But it really means, what is the book about? So, handeln von, just as a phrase, means something is about something else. Yeah. About what is the book? You could say wovon is functionally the same as about what in this case. So, compare wo compounds versus regular prepositional phrases. So, woran erinnern Sie sich is, what do you remember? Of what do you remind yourself? And then, an wen erinnern Sie sich? Whom do you remember? So this is going to be a person, right? If you're asking, what do you remember? Asking for an object or an idea or something, then you use the wo compound, because that's for inanimate objects. But if you're asking for a person, then you're going to use our normal preposition plus our question words, meaning it's like wer, wen, wem, wessen, right? So we're going to use our normal who question words if we're asking for a person. So there's a contrast between these two forms, depending on whether it's person or not a person. Wovon handelt das Buch? What is the book about, right? But then if you said von wem handelt das Buch? Whom is the book about? So now instead of asking what is the book about, we're asking for a person, and so we're still going to use von like you would otherwise, but then instead of using a wo construction, because that's only for non-people, we're going to use wem, which is of course our question word in the dative. Yeah, whom is the book about? Okay, so wo compounds, sometimes with the r, if of course the preposition begins with a vowel. So womit fangen wir an? What do we begin with, or with what do we begin, right? So womit, with what? What do we begin with? What with do we begin? Wozu gebraucht man dieses Instrument? What do you use this instrument for? Wozu, it just means what purpose for, what for. Yeah. And then worauf muss warten? What does he have to wait for, or for what? So warten auf is to wait for. So auf and warten just go together, right? So you say worauf, for what does he have to wait? Okay, Wohl compounds may introduce relative clauses, in which case they replace the relative pronoun, object of preposition. For example, das Haus in dem. And you can say das Haus worin. So you remember how question words can introduce relative clauses as well? Like, ich weiß nicht, wer das ist. I don't know who that is. So wohl compounds are also kind of question words. So in the same vein, they can, as question words, they can also replace relative pronouns. So we have das Haus, worin lange gewohnt hatte, wurde zerstört, the house in which. So you can also have das Haus in dem, right? When we did relative clauses, we also did relative clauses that start with a preposition and then have your regular relative pronoun. So it's the same. Das Haus, worin lange gewohnt hatte, the house in which, versus das Haus, in dem lange gewohnt hatte, it means the same thing. It would have the same translation, in which. And then das Thema, womit wir uns heute beschäftigen, heißt the topic with which we are dealing today, womit, with which. And then, but you could also say das Thema, mit dem wir uns heute beschäftigen. It would mean the same thing. Ich weiß nicht, woran gedacht hat. I don't know what he was thinking about. What about he was thinking? So, yeah, ich weiß nicht an. In this one, it doesn't work. Ich weiß nicht an. Yeah, for some reason, it doesn't work with that one. So you can't always do it. Sometimes you can replace it, and sometimes you can't. I think it's because there's no noun over here. It's so vague, right? Ich weiß nicht, because with das Haus and das Thema, there was a noun there, so you could say in dem, mit dem. But with this one, there's no noun to refer back to. It's more, it's so abstract. So you can't do it here. It has to be woran. Yeah. Ich weiß auch nicht, wovon gesprochen hat. I also don't know what he was talking about. Yeah. So ich weiß auch nicht von was. That doesn't work, right? Of what. So it has to be wovon. Yeah. Ich weiß auch nicht, wovon gesprochen hat. I also don't know what he was talking about. What about he was talking. So only inanimate objects and ideas occur with wo. You can't do that with a person. Yeah. So here, compounds is the same thing, but they will have the meaning of like this, or something at hand, or this, right? Whatever is here in front of us. So you don't translate it as here, but it's like it refers to something at hand. So hier is combined similarly, but less often, with prepositions to form hierauf, hieraus, hierbei, hierdurch, hierfür, hiergegen, hierin, hiermit, hiernach, hierüber, hierunter, hierzu. So you can take the preposition and just translate hier as this. So hierauf werden wir später zurückkommen. We will come back to this later. So wir kommen auf das Thema zurück. Imagine if it was like wir werden, or just like wir kommen auf das Thema zurück would be we come back to the topic. So it's like auf is to here. So we come back to this. Hierin muss ich Ihnen Recht geben. You could imagine like ich muss Ihnen in diesem Thema Recht geben. Like I must admit you're right in this topic or something, right? So hierin, in this. That one's very intuitive. You just have to remember that hier is best translated as this here. So hiermit beenden wir unsere Unterhaltung with this. Yeah, so here best translated as this. Yeah. Hiermit, with this, we conclude our conversation. Hierzu braucht man viel Zeit und Geld. A lot of time and money are needed for this. So hierzu is like wozu. Wozu is like what for, what's the purpose. And then hierzu is like for this. It also has you need money for this purpose. So for this, it's the reason it's for is because it has that same sort of purpose meaning. Yeah. Okay, so now we have some exercises on the last slides, 2 slides, that will help you practice wohl compounds. And so they are pairs of sentences that show the wohl happening and then just the prepositional phrase that then corresponds to it in the answer. So viel Spaß, have lots of fun with those, und wir sehen uns im nächsten Video. Tschüss, auf Wiedersehen, bis bald.